أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're going to dive into a really profound passage from the Quran, from Surah Sad, to try and get a handle on its deeper spiritual and even psychological meanings. You know, the Quran talks a lot about the afterlife, right? But what if it's not just talking about some future place? What if it's also describing two different worlds that we're creating inside of ourselves right now? It really gets you to ask, are paradise and hell just destinations we're heading for, or are they states of being that we're building inside our own hearts every single day? All right, so first, let's take a look at the surface level, the outer descriptions that the Quran gives for these two completely different destinies. The source material for this explainer calls this the zahir, the apparent external realities that we can picture. And right away, the contrast is just so powerful. On one hand, you have paradise, which is all about total invitation. Its gates are described as wide open, a signal of acceptance, of safety, of warmth. And then you have hell, which literally begins with this cry of rejection, no welcome for them. It's a place that's defined by hostility from the very first moment. This contrast just keeps going when we look at what's provided in each place. In paradise, there's this endless supply of fruit and drink. It's a symbol of complete ease and divine abundance. But what's the provision in hell? Well, according to these verses, it's an endless, vicious cycle of blaming each other, of accusations, and of deep-seated resentment. Now, here's where it gets really interesting, especially when we think about our own lives. It's the focus on relationships. The companions in paradise are described in a way that suggests purity, honor, and a deep mutual respect. It's an atmosphere of complete trust. But the core reality of hell, as the Quran calls it, is takhasum, this constant, bitter quarreling. It's the total breakdown of trust and relationships. Okay, so we've seen the outside. Now let's dive into the deeper Sufi understanding, what the sources call the batin, the inner reality. And the core idea here is that those outer realities we just talked about, they're actually born from the inner states of our own hearts. The Sufi masters teach that we're always cultivating one of two inner worlds. There's the Jannat al-Qalb, which translates to the inner Gordon, a heart that's spacious, that's widened by remembrance, and is totally open to truth. And then there's the burning heart, which is a heart that's tight, constricted, filled with ego, and hostile to that very same truth. The great mystic Tustari said it so powerfully. He said the worst return that the Quran talks about isn't just a physical place. It's the spiritual state of returning to a self filled with ego. It's being trapped in a prison that you yourself have built. And the master Ibn Arabi just nails it with this line. Hell is the soul arguing with itself. It's not just some punishment from the outside. It is fundamentally an internal conflict. It's that fragmentation where our own desires are at war with our wisdom and our pride is fighting our conscience. So how do we actually grow this inner garden? Well, it's all about these beautiful parallels. The open gates of paradise, that's a heart that's receptive to truth. The abundant fruits, those are the insights, the virtues, the inspirations that grow when you're open. Reclining in ease, well, that's the state of trust and surrender to God. And those peaceful companions, they represent our own desires, purified and disciplined. And on the flip side, you've got the inner fire. And this is a state that's built on a foundation of chronic blaming and defensiveness. It's that feeling when you just can't accept correction, and it leads to this kind of spiritual claustrophobia. That internal conflict, that tahassum, becomes the very air the soul breathes. It's a constant state of being broken apart inside. Now, what's absolutely fascinating is that this ancient spiritual psychology isn't just something locked away in old books. It actually finds echoes in all sorts of wisdom, from the mystical all the way to the modern. Let's look at one of those mystical connections. There's a practice known as abjad, or Sufi numerology, where letters are given numerical values. And in this system, the number 6 holds this incredible duality that is just perfect for what we're talking about today. So get this. The numerical value of the phrase Jannat Aden, or Gardens of Eternity, it reduces down to the number 6, a symbol of harmony and perfect balance. But unbelievably, the value for takhasum, that word for internal conflict and quarreling, also reduces to 6. The exact same number represents both the perfect integration of the garden and the shattered imbalance of the fire. It's like it's telling us that harmony and conflict are two sides of the same coin of human potential. The choice is really ours. And what's really remarkable is how these spiritual states have direct parallels in modern psychology. The paradise state, with its open gates and sense of abundance, it mirrors concepts like secure attachment and having an abundance mindset. These are the foundations of what psychologists now call flourishing. And the house state, defined by blame and hostility, well, that's a perfect description of dysfunction, getting stuck in blame loops, relational hostility, things that lead to what we might call psychological fragmentation. So, what does this all mean for us? Right here, right now, in our day-to-day lives. How do we actually apply this? Well, the source material gives us this really powerful metaphor that brings it all home. Think of it this way. Your heart contains both of these potentials. It holds the seed of a beautiful garden, and it holds the spark of a raging fire. In the path you take, it's chosen in every single moment. When you encounter some truth, maybe it's from someone you love, from a sacred text, or even a tough life lesson, and you welcome it, you're watering your inner garden. But when you resist it, when you get defensive and start pointing fingers, you're feeding that inner fire. So to kind of bring our reflection to a close, let's just end with a short prayer, a supplication that's inspired directly by these verses and the beautiful wisdom of the mystics. O Allah, let my heart be a garden of welcome, not a furnace of resistance. Open its gates to truth and protect me from the fire of blame. Make my return an excellent return. Ameen. And that really leaves us with one final question to think about. And it's not a question for some distant future, but for this very moment. Which world are you cultivating inside your heart today?
This explainer was based on some wonderful material compiled by Mir Ali Shah, which he put together for the Living the Wisdom of the Quran podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.